My dogs, my friends, my cats, my kitty catties, my ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. This is the ultimate video on how to crush the Caro-Kann. And this is actually only part one. And we are going to look at a specific move. Let me just adjust this window. So we can actually see the chessboard. That would be nice, wouldn't it? We can see the chessboard. Just like that. Okay, so we are going to be looking at e4. Black, of course, plays c6. This is the Caro-Kann. They want to play d5. That's why they play c6, because they don't want to lose a pawn in the center. Just like that. So they create this defender, c6, defending d5. And we, of course, we are greedy as white. So we take the full center. We just throw in another pawn. Why? Because black allowed us to do this. Whereas, for example, in the Sicilian c5, they don't allow us to do it. So, if they allow us to do it, I generally recommend just take the center. You know, just be greedy. Be greedy. And then black, of course, plays d5 because they played c6. And now we can, of course, we can take this pawn. This is the exchange variation, the Caro-Kann exchange variation. We can also advance our pawn. This is the Caro-Kann advance variation. But we are going to do neither of those. We're going to play neither of those moves. So let me just remove them from our tree. Let me remove them from our tree. And as you can see, we are going to play the classical variation, which is knight to c3, knight to c3. We are defending our pawn on e4. So we're not advancing, we're defending it with our knight. And now black is kind of obligated to take it. It is the most common move by far in any database that you will find on chess openings. So they are going to take it. It's nice if you know what they're going to play. So we're going to take back this pawn. And now you will see often black will play knight f6. And we have this standoff between the knights. And then I recommend just take the knight. Just take the knight. And now they have no center pawns. And this will be a whole different game, of course. And this is actually my part 2 video on how to crush the Caro-Kann. So I will cover in part 2, I will cover this move, knight to f6 in this position. But today we're not going to discuss this. We're going to discuss a more classical variation. This is bishop to f5, attacking our center knight. In this case, we just drop it back because a bishop is worth a bit more than a knight. So we want to trade our knight for this bishop. So if they defend the bishop, we of course are going to take it. And now we have the bishop pair and they don't. So you won't be seeing e6 if your opponent knows anything about their opening, that they are playing themselves. I assume they know their own opening. So instead, you will see bishop back to g6, dropping back their bishop. And this is where it gets interesting, because one of the main lines here for white is h4. We are aiming to play h5 to kind of trap this bishop. So black will respond with h7 to create an escape square for their bishop. So just in case we play h5 here, they are going to drop back their bishop nicely into the corner. And they are good with the bishop. And they have a nice overview of the whole board. And we cannot really do anything about this bishop. Now, this is not bad or good necessarily for anyone. But it's the main line. So we are not gonna play it because we don't really like main lines, because that if we play the main line, it kind of means that your opponent knows the opening just as well as you do, or better, or worse. But it's like it's going to be a theory battle. So we are going to play a funky move here, knight h3, and you will see in a minute why we play knight h3. You will see in just a minute why we play this weird move knight h3. So, assuming black doesn't understand this opening, they are going to play what they always play, which is e6 to activate their dark squared bishop. And now we can play the follow-up move, knight to f4, again attacking their bishop, but now with the other knight. But the thing is here, their bishop, they cannot really run away because they haven't played h6. So the only thing for them to do now is to ignore it, basically, to ignore this threat and allow us to potentially take the bishop. But it's not even our goal to take that bishop. We don't even want to take it because we have a much more better thing in our sleeves waiting for black. So let's just assume that black develops their knight. Now we play h4. So we're going back to that old main line to play h4, but we waited a bit with playing h4. We waited until we had a knight on f4 because... Why? Why did we wait? Because now black cannot play h6. It's too late. It's too late, baby. It's too late for them to create this escape square for their bishop because we can take it with the knight. And now they are forced to take back with this pawn. And this is just really bad for black because we can attack this pawn very easily with our bishop, and there's literally nothing black can do to defend this pawn except to defend it with the king. But this is not gonna help them because we can just add another attacker to this pawn. Can you see how we can add another attacker to this pawn? Not with one move, but we have to prepare a bit. That's right, we can play c3 to add our queen to the attack. We just gonna drop the queen behind of the bishop to build this battery. And there's nothing black can do to add a defender to the g6 pawn. So they are just gonna have to ignore it. And they will activate their bishop, for example. And now we start adding pressure to the g6 pawn, and this is a lost game for black because in the next move we take back the pawn and the whole black's position is in shambles and their king safety is compromised completely. So I just wanted to show you why black can no longer play h6 here. That's why black can no longer play h6 in this position. So instead, they have to keep ignoring this threat of h5. So they're going to develop their bishop, and we are going to play h5, attacking the bishop. And now they have to move the bishop. They have to move the bishop, otherwise they will lose a bunch of material. So they can go either to f5, in which case we just take, and we'll see from there how to play. Or they might try to go to e4 and then to d5, which in case we just kick them with our pawn and then trap the bishop with our other pawn. And now you can see that the light squared bishop of the black pieces is completely trapped. So this is again completely winning for white. Already after 11 moves, we trapped their bishop. Isn't that nice? That's very nice. All because we had the guts to leave the main line and play something funky, something interesting. So the other move, bishop to f5. This is the most critical line. The best move for black once they are in this position is bishop to f5. And as I said, we can just take it with our knight, and they can either take back with the pawn, or they can take back with the queen if they are clever enough, with queen a5 and forking our king and knight like this. But we're going to discuss this move first. We're going to discuss all moves one by one, of course. So we kind of want to attack this weird pawn because this pawn is kind of a target to us. And that was the whole idea of this whole dance, kind of, was to create some imbalance in their pawn structure. So we want to attack this pawn, but the problem is if we attack straight away with our bishop, they can just trade the bishop for the knight, and this opens up this line. So if we take back, they can take our center pawn, and our center pawn is really dear to me, actually. It's really dear. So we really don't want this to happen. We really don't want this to happen. So before we attack this pawn with the bishop, let me just remove this variation from the tree that we have here. Before we we go here. Oh, oops. Yes, no, this one. All right, this one. E takes on f5. Before we attack this pawn, we want to trade the queens because we don't want this whole, you know, this whole dance to happen that I just showed you. So we're gonna play queen e2 check, and they kind of have to block it with their queen, or they have to retreat their bishop, which is good for us, or they have to move the king, but they will give up their castling rights. So what you will see here most often is that they are going to block with their queen, and then we can simply trade the queens. And now we can attack this pawn with the bishop. And the only way for black to defend this pawn actually is to play g6, but this is a mistake because this pawn is pinned after we take with h5. You see that? It is pinned. The second this pawn moves, we can just pick up their rook. So they have to take back with this pawn. But now we have the knight forking their king and rook. And if they take, we can pick up their rook because the pawn was still pinned. And we find ourselves again in a very, very winning position. So that's one thing you should remember, that g6 is a dangerous move for them. G6 is a dangerous move for them. If we just jump back to this position, you can see that black can also take back our knight with queen a5 check, forking our king and knight. And in this case, I recommend blocking with the bishop, and this is a good move because we also develop our bishop. And then after they take with the queen, we can just keep attacking their queen with the bishops. And if they jump to g4, we just trade our queens and we kick their knight back. We kick their knight back to f6. So that's how we deal with this position. It's not winning, it's not losing, it's better for white at least. Slightly better. So that's how you deal with this move, queen a5 check. So I feel like we covered a lot of variations already, but I just want to emphasize that sometimes black decides to trade this bishop for our knight. In this case, we just take back and we do the same thing. We just do the same thing as always. We trade the queens, and then we attack their pawn, and then we attack their pawn with the bishop. All right. So that's how we deal with that move, where they trade their bishop for the knight. And now there is something else I want to discuss. Very often they don't develop their knight to f6 that early. They develop their bishop instead, and after h4 they build this cannon with the queen and the bishop attacking our knight. And now we have no time to play h5, because if we play h5, they will simply take our knight. And then if we take this pawn, this will be a very complex position, which is actually a bit better for black if they play the right moves. So I really recommend to not play h5 here in this position. Instead, just take the bishop with the knight. And now the position is fairly equal. We have this move attacking their bishop, and then we can trade the bishops so they no longer have this battery, and we can jump with our knight to g5, and this is actually a kind of an outpost for now because they cannot attack the knight with f6. Then we simply pick up the pawn on e6, and you would think this might be a double attack, a fork with the queen, but we can bring our queen to e2, and now we are defending our knight with an x-ray defense. We're defending our knight through their queen, so they kind of have to trade the queens, and now we are winning because we are threatening to take on g7, and we are threatening to move to c7, forking their king and knight. And even if they defend this pawn, we can still attack their rook because the rook is trapped. And did I just call the rook a knight 1 minute ago? My apologies. This is of course a rook. And this is what we do when they build this battery. When they build this battery with the queen and the bishop before they develop their knight to f6, we accept that h4 was kind of a wasted move, and we will not play h5. We will not play h5, my friends. We will simply be disciplined and take the bishop on g6. So that's what we do when they don't develop their knight, but they build this battery with queen and bishop. And this is what I call the cannon defense, So I feel like we've covered all variations. Now, of course, there are many more variations possible and many more moves that black can play. So if this happens, if you find yourself in a game where black plays a different move than I discussed here, you can, after the game, you can analyze this and go back to this opening tree, and you can add your own moves to the tree before you want to practice it. For example, here black might play h6 because they feel it coming, and then we just still play knight f4, and they can drop back if they want. So you can add this to the tree, and then you can press the practice button and you can start practicing like this. So we have the opening lines e4, c6, d4, d5, and then we defend the pawn with knight, with our knight to c3, and if they take, we can just simply take back, and then if they bring out their bishop, we drop back our knight attacking their bishop, and then we bring the other knight to h3, which is a strange move, of course, but we know why it works. And now, after they play e6, we can again attack their bishop, and we can start with h4, h5. Okay, and as I discussed in the video, they built this battery, so we have no time to play h5. So now we just simply take the bishop, and in this position, it's very wise to play knight e4, attacking their bishop. Whoa. And then if they attack our knight, we can just take their bishop, and we have completed this variation. And there are 11 in total, but I'm sure you will learn them all. Just go to our website inchester.com, and I'll see you in the next video.